Good morning. May the grace, peace, and love of Christ be with each of us. Today we're going to be talking about diligent study. In Hebrews chapter 2 verse 1, we read, "Therefore we ought to give the more earnest heed to the things which we have heard, lest at any time we should let them slip." Diligence. Interest or care applied in the execution of a task. Zeal. That's the definition of the word diligence. Let us see in Ezra's life how important this diligent study was to him, for it brought him into an intimate relationship with the Father and to God's people of his time. Descendant of Aaron's son, Ezra had received priestly education. In addition to this, he acquired familiarity with the writings of the Magi, astrologers, and scholars of the Persian kingdom. But he was not satisfied with his spiritual condition. He signed in his desire to be in full harmony with God. He longed for wisdom to do the divine will. And so, he prepared his heart to seek the law of the Lord and to do it. This led to diligent application in the study of the history of God's people, as is reported in the writings of the prophets and the kings of the Old Testament. He was impressed by the Spirit of God to study the historical and poetic books of the Bible in order to understand why God had allowed Jerusalem to be destroyed and his people to be taken captive to the land of the pagans. Ezra made a special study of the experience of God's chosen people, from the time when the promise was made to Abraham, to the deliverance from Egyptian slavery and the Exodus. He studied the instructions given to them at the foot of Mount Sinai, and through the long period of wandering in the desert. As he learned more and more about God's doing for his children, and realized how sacred the law was in Sinai, Ezra's heart was impressed as never before. He experienced a new and complete conversion, and now he was determined to master the records of the history of the Old Testament so that he could use this knowledge not for selfish purpose, but so as to bring blessing and light to his people. Some of the prophecies were about to be fulfilled, and he searched diligently for the light that was obscure. Ezra struggled in his studies. He explored the word that had been written about the duties of God's chosen people. He found the solemn vow made by the Israelites that they would obey the Lord's word, and the vow that God had in return made with them, promising them his blessing as a reward for their obedience. Through Ezra's life, we have an idea of how a converted Christian acts. He studied the Word of God diligently, placing himself in closer communion with God, and with an applied interest, seeking to know what God's plans are for his own life and for his people. May God bless us. May his Spirit impress in each of us our own need to be diligent students of his word. I'll be waiting for you again tomorrow. Until then, have a lovely day.